What we make are luxury products.
The products we make are exceptional. You can't buy them anywhere else.
When you look at how much money we spend on putting together a car like this, you can see a lot of pressure developing on many levels.
And we all thought, did that just happen?
Can you also put some pressure on again?
You receive a complete car, so when we convert it into a 6x6, it's the same with the XLP or the P900. We get a complete car. We get a G63 Type 6, that is, a normal, large, long chassis, the way Daimler delivers them.
Morning.
Morning.
We need a pallet truck, a pallet.
A giant off-road monster.
Precisely the car that defines us.
Oh yeah, man. Wow, that's a monster.
With the 6x6, the whole thing started a while back. When the new G-Class came out, we said, we want to build a very special car based on the G-Class. We all looked at each other and said, a 6x6? Now that would be pretty cool. It'd be precisely the car that defines us.
Now the next step would be to wire the whole interior.
From about the rear door on, the frame is almost completely new with the 6x6. That means we cut the base G's frame off there and built a new frame using appropriate welding templates and fixtures.
Then we put in the Brabus increased displacement engine with 900 horsepower.
We want to go bigger, higher, and faster. We want to move ahead. We have to top it again with something. I mean, after the crawler, after a G-buggy like that, that's of course going to be the next challenge. What's going to be the next big thing?
My top 3 highlights by the Brabus 600.
Wowie, 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 man. That's really a sexy car.
We often get together and discuss what our next projects could be. Often you can build on previous things from the past. You look at what's happening on the market. What vehicles are coming to market right now? What kinds of exciting new cars are out there?
We're talking about 900 horsepower here. If you know a bit about cars, you'll see it and say, yeah, that's how it should be.
Come and take a look at this.
Last year in May, we premiered a tuning program for the Porsche 911 Turbo S for the first time. For us, that was a very, very big step. But it was also clear to us that it wouldn't be the end. We're not interested in being the next Porsche tuner. We want to build special cars based on any model, as long as it suits us and the core of our brand.
Now, if I look at the opening here in the front apron, I'll find several features that were created the same way for our other cars. Same with the outer air inlets, where the air flows into the outer radiators without any grills in the way, and directly into the radiators. These are all features that you can find on many of our other vehicles, ones that have now been implemented in the Porsche Rocket and adopted as part of our identity.
My father grew up working in my grandfather's business, where he mainly sold Mercedes-Benz vehicles. However, he was always a huge Porsche fan. There's a great shot of him lying in the back of his first Porsche that someone took through the window from above. I still love looking at that photo because it truly captures my father's passion for cars. And that's why now, some 45 years later, for me, the fact that we're dealing with Porsche vehicles again is not only about making a product decision, it's also a whole lot of fun. That was already the case with the 820 based on the Turbo S. But now, of course, with the Rocket R, it's obvious that we found a very distinctive continuation of this story that contains tons of Brabus DNA.
We're always working on many different projects.
Can we push it a little more over there?
That create a variety of challenges with very different characteristics.
We're aiming at about 3 weeks.
So, the roll bars.
First, we listed the carbon panel on the right-hand side and the holes for the rear door. That was a constructive topic for us internally.
Can we come up with a way to make that part more robust so that it directly...
It already has 2 different thicknesses.
Think about it. The 6x6 was developed and on the market in 6 to 8 months. And then look at the life cycle of a mass-produced vehicle, where 2 to 5 years are not a long time. To really succeed in developing everything in such a short time frame, that's really ambitious and sometimes very strenuous. But that's the challenge I simply adore. What about the upper carbon roll bar? It's not flush with the seal.
It's properly flush here, but it's not here.
It's probably a bit too short.
I'm not sure. Go to...
In assembly, you can.
Well, actually,
If somebody pushed it down firmly, yeah.
if these were the old days, things would be escalating right about now. Can I please see the corner that doesn't fit? Now? He's doing that on purpose. Right here, this corner is where it looks the worst. You can see a bit of a gap here.
Ten years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do the projects and build the cars we build today. As a company, you always have to continue developing. And of course, it's my job not only to focus on what's happening right now, such as managing projects like the 6x6, which has to be developed in a time frame of about 3 years, start to finish. But at the same time, it's also my job to look ahead and see how the company is developing. So I work simultaneously on the vehicles, the projects we currently have, but also take a step back and work on the whole system as well.
Konstantin is somebody who is in favor of change, but also of keeping good existing things in place, which is important, so that everything works well together. And I think that's the success that defines us today, that we never forget where we came from, never forget our traditions and how we go about our work, and at the same time, remain open for new ideas and carry them out as well. That's what he's looking for as he plays his part in making it happen. It's a typical Brabus.
Black and bold, masterpiece, V8.
One of 2 vehicles that have always been sort of a challenger for me.
Especially with the Range Rover, the interior is very special.
This is so cool. Absolute Champions League.
I was in New York a few weeks ago, and in Manhattan, the European SUV you see the most is the current Range Rover. Not a Mercedes GLS or a G-Wagon.
We completely dismantled the vehicle in all its parts, down to the smallest detail.
Okay, so now we've got the airbag. The special thing about this vehicle is that it's completely new to us. We've never built a vehicle like this.
Other manufacturers always constitute a new playing field. Mercedes we know by heart. We've grown with them for decades. We feel at home there. Other manufacturers have other philosophies, have other technical standards, have other approaches. And you have to get used to them.
Are we still stuck to the frame on your side?
No, it looks okay.
Everything's off. Okay, good.
Of course, we have all the workshop information, manuals that you usually need to consult. But not everything is always included. Especially things that are normally never taken apart, aren't described. We work a lot with carbon, we work with glazed components, and we often dismantle and disassemble parts that are not usually dismantled. And that's why the workshop information on this topic isn't always 100% helpful.
Now it can't find its end position. Geez, why so complicated?
The integration of leather in the interior is still a very manual process.
The carpet is also made here in the saddlery. I'm curious to see how well I can get all this back in here later.
We have a variety of areas in our facilities for different projects, in our workshops where we work on the cars. The 6x6 you'll usually find in Plant 3, because that's where we build our special production vehicles. The crawler is built there, the XLP, and so of course the 6x6 as well. We've also carried out a lot of development tests and analyses on the car there.
We're going to weigh the vehicle now, so we'll get a rough idea for where we'll end up.
Have you weighed it before, or is this the first time?
Yes, this will be the first.
Your gut feeling? What'll it weigh?
3,200?
Previous one was 3.4, wasn't it? With the rigid axles.
Everybody write down a number.
I say 3.2. Whoever's the closest.
3.4, although...
The furthest away buys a Coke for everybody. First of all, it's important for the TÜV vehicle approval to know the total weight, and also for calculating the chassis components. And of course, it's important to know how much weight is going to need to be set in motion.
No.
It's stuck, right?
Yep, stuck. Back up.
Now all wheels are clear, right?
Drive a little further. Stop. And now leave it. Don't do anything. Why is this happening? We've got to go back to this. Will we have to take the whole thing apart again? It recognizes it via electrical consumption, and when the front one contracts, the rear one has problems.
Move it forward again. Try it.
Looks very good. Come on out, Tiki. And 3 is
3 is left rear.
left rear. So we've already got that. And the second axle, 498. Why is it so heavy in the front, Mirko? That's almost impossible. We'll have to take another look at that.
You lost the bet. That's the main takeaway here.
So, what do you have? Coke? 1? Apple Spritzer? 2? 3?
A lot of the work on Rocket R happened in our traditional development workshop in Plant 1. Brabus X, down in the basement, the famous basement workshop. Very private, very protected. But because of that, always great to use because you can work on vehicles that not everyone is supposed to see.
Now with this chassis, we have basically adapted the springs to the shock absorbers. They belong together. So for now, we're just lowering the vehicle, you know? We're going a little lower with the chassis, just a few millimeters. Which means the driving stability and the suspension becomes a bit crisper and sportier overall.
The car is dynamic to drive, way beyond what you can imagine as a normal person. This is truly an exceptional car, limited to 25 units worldwide, where customers choose their individual color designs. But in the end, the car is unique, and everyone wants a car like this. If you know a bit about cars, you'll see it and say, yeah, that's how it should be.
Here we've received the front apron for our RS conversion, which we've just attached to the car temporarily. The bottom part is essentially connected to the upper part of the apron. So now we have here the new rocket apron, and here the serial apron in connection with our carbon parts originating from the 820. Here you can really see that our entire air intake has become a lot bigger compared to the standard bumper.
Our goal is the 1-second wow effect, meaning that ideally, when you see a product, you have an immediate emotional reaction. You fall in love with it, recognize what it is, a Brabus, and you want to have it. If we can achieve that, we've reached our goal.
Come and take a look at this.
And now, my highlight of the evening, the Brabus Rocket R.
If we can't achieve that, we probably should have done our job better.
There are so-called camouflage wraps that are so uneven in terms of structure and paintwork that you can't make out the contours of the car. The big manufacturers use them, like Mercedes, which is always our starting point. But these days, we're forced to use them as well. When you drive off the premises here, you'll see the spotters standing at traffic lights and taking photos. That's happening more and more. In a way, the wrap makes the car even more eye-catching at first, but if you look closely, you really can't make out any of the contours.
How do you feel before a rollout like this? Well, it's a combination of excitement and great fun. Of course, you look forward to seeing how the car... We really worked on it a long time before it was finally finished. So the question is, how will it actually work? What'll happen? The vehicle has a completely new drivetrain. We have new differential housings, we have new drive shafts. Any vehicle engineer can think of 1,000 things that could cause problems, things we didn't know about in the beginning. When you have a rollout, it's a rollout, and that means the car is driven for the first time. It's never been evaluated. Are there any vibrations? Is there noise? Is there anything off? We really did change a lot on the vehicle. The front hood, the roof, and the doors are from the base model. Everything else is new.
Pretty robust here.
Yeah, that's for the light. It has to be robust.
Exactly.
On the front apron, we have two color combinations that will be visible. The bottom part will be made entirely of exposed carbon. It's manufactured using the pre-peg process, which gives the component a very attractive color contrast as well. Right now we're in one of our regular meetings, which we don't normally do directly around the vehicle, but it just makes sense because we're in the middle of sampling all the components anyway, which we always do on site. At this stage, we're putting the vehicle together completely for the first time. This goes over here like this. The missing piece here will be painted soon, and then we have an air outlet.
Today, the design and development process is fully digital. Of course, we've previously seen the vehicle in VR, in virtual reality. We can walk around it. Nowadays, you can get a really good grasp of everything with modern technology. But when you stand in front of a car like this for the first time in real life, even if the fenders are still in bare carbon, not painted, and still have traces of sanding, you start to realize how mature the final look will be. Where that crease is now, it goes straight down. The extra width is about 30.
It somehow seems wider than...
You have to see the front. It's more than 60 millimeters wider than the standard 911 Turbo S, which already has a sturdy appearance, so it's really wide.
Normally, you go like this. Look left and right to see what the difference is. But my arms are too short.
Those days are over. We won't have to worry about any asymmetry here.
The next step is to continue with the sample tests. And when the rest of the parts arrive later this week, we'll have all the parts that make up the bodywork package. Those will then go to the paint shop. Next week, we'll be going full throttle with assembly, and then the week after next, we'll be in the wind tunnel.
The prototype needs to be more or less fully developed, fully produced, and then all the testing equipment needs to be installed. We have the measuring equipment we need for all the parameters we want to measure on this test track. The braking conditions, acceleration issues, etc. That has to be installed. Then it's really exciting to finally see the vehicle in motion, this battleship.
Now let's try to activate low range and connect the rear axle. I hit the brakes earlier with the damper, just on the hard setting, with 2 amps on the valves. That felt better to me. We had a few challenges, but I have to say the car had an almost frighteningly good level of maturity from the first rollout we had in Aldenhoven. And?
Nice.
Real nice.
Real nice. There, I turn twice and it starts regulating right when you think it should. At that exact moment.
Here you're about to see a full-on hard brake.
We like going to the limit. And when grown men turn into little boys and push things to the extreme, where the vehicle will probably never end up in real life.
Not yet. Now, it's slipping out again, although not all the way. Now it's fully out.
Yeah, sure, everything's fine. Andreas Lennartz and I were sitting in the car. The test went well, up until the moment when we saw a very big, very steep dirt hill ahead of us on the testing grounds. And we said to ourselves, since we're here with a 6x6 and all its differential locks and portal axles, we should really try it out. Then we took it up the hill, put the gear reduction in, then locked the central lock, the front and rear axle so that everything was secure, and then pushed forward with momentum. And then there was a bang.
And then everyone holds their breath. Oh my God, did that really happen?
At that moment, we still had the rear axle's drive shafts activated. Well, not in one piece the way they are in the final series, but we had built one shaft out of 3 others. So there is always a risk of it tearing exactly on the weld seams. And there's quite a bit of power behind it, 800 to 900 horsepower and over 1,000 Newton meters. So in this situation, there's a bit of stress on it.
From the flange over there to there. That's a friction welded prototype shaft.
We broke it. No, up until now we had a really good rollout. And then you get overzealous. No, that may be a strong word. We really wanted to try it out. And now we're searching because we have 6 drive shafts, or rather 4. It can only be one of the rear ones that broke. I think we'll find it soon. Yeah. Then our LOP list, our list of open points, slowly fills up because you realize it's rattling somewhere. Something isn't regulating properly. A signal isn't appearing clearly. There's some implausibility, such as a drive shaft tearing, a brake pedal is too soft. and then it all has to be taken care of. So you actually assemble a list of tasks that you successively work through, and you go from test to test. Through testing and driving, the car eventually gains more and more maturity and is ultimately developed to the point that it's ready for the customer.
How do we build an SL exactly the way Bodo Buschmann would have built it?
Bodo Buschmann cars were always black.
What would have happened if we had handed him the keys and said, "Here, we have something for you"?
Anyone who's been here at the company for a while will remember Bodo Buschmann arriving in its R129 SL, based back then on the 600 SL, which later became the SL600, with Brabus mono black 2 wheels painted matte black. You heard Vaya con Dios coming from the stereo system, on CD back then. Azzaro fragrance in the air, one of his favorites at the time. The top was down, Carrera sunglasses on, and that's how he arrived at work in the morning.
The Brabus 750, based on the SL63, the Bodo Buschmann edition, is an homage to our former boss and founder. It's a car that's been built the way we're sure he would have wanted it for himself.
I'll roughly tape these parts to the apron with duct tape so they stay in place.
The first test fitting of our exterior components is always an exciting moment. That's when you can see whether the parts really fit well, the way we want them to, and the way our customers naturally expect. The difficulty here is that we often work with very stiff carbon fiber components that we then place on standard front or rear aprons, which are made using injection molding and are therefore much more flexible, much more compliant. That means our components have to fit extremely well on these very soft parts without any visible transitions. It's always kind of scary, I would say, because the carbon fiber is so stiff, it doesn't give at all. You can't try to push it or force it into a shape it doesn't want to take. And then to get it to sit cleanly on this soft substructure is pretty tricky.
Having had the chance to work together with someone and learning so much from this person, then all the while you didn't even realize it was happening.
He was certainly a classic founder, as we call it today, though you didn't say it back then, but someone who built the business up from scratch. He had an incredible feel for the market and customer desires, and always said, "You have to be your own first customer."
One of the most important things my father passed on to me: you have to be customer number one. What we make are luxury products. And with luxury products, it's always about, what do they do for the driver? What does the car do for you? How much does it excite you when you sit in it and drive? When you accelerate, hit the brakes, or go into curves? And at the same time, there's the question, how do you appear to those around you in this car?
Especially with the Range Rover, the interior really is very special. Konstantin chose the color. It originated from a discussion about the Maybach variant that we made, where it became clear fairly quickly in the product forum we want to look into pastel tones. Then I had the task of making a few suggestions, and then it was a WhatsApp chat with photos and short, quick passes played in midfield.
The reason I like the interior so much is that when you approach the car from far away, you immediately see something has happened. It's one of a kind. It's a very special car. It's not standard.
Designing a leather interior is still a very manual process.
We work with the finest leathers. That always sounds so mundane, but I originally come from the fashion sector. I know how high the expectations for leather and other materials are because there are so many significant differences. For the cutting process, we get these huge hides from a cow, and only the best pieces, without mosquito bites or scars, etc., are actually used. It is really high-level work.
The 6x6. Both vehicles are fitted out as masterpieces, obviously, as nothing else would make sense for such expensive vehicles. All surfaces are leathered, including the floor. There's elaborate quilting, perforations, and embroidery. We introduced a new quilting pattern, the triangle, which we actually took from our boating sector. So it's technically not new to the world of Brabus, but it's new to Brabus supercars, in a perforated version on the seats and in an embroidered version on the door panels.
When you look at how much money we spend to get a car like this up and running over a long period of time, in this case, just under 3 years, I start to notice a lot of pressure developing on many levels, because we have to get the process paid for as a company, because we need the right people in the right place at the right time, and all these individual steps in development need to be coordinated.
You want to glue one on too?
What should we let Cedric glue on? Should I take the camera?
You know where that's supposed to go, right?
Here? Like this?
Careful, don't push it like that or you'll smear glue all over. First, you slide it in and then you try to push it down.
I only wanted to glue on one piece and now you walk in.
You did a good job.
You wanted to glue one on? You sure you can do it? Yeah, sure. On the one side, it's my job to always keep an eye on vehicle development and ask, is everything running? Will we get it paid for? Are there any roadblocks? Do we have to make changes somewhere? And at the same time, it's also my role to give the team positive energy, drive and passion, always signaling that we're up to the task. We can do this.
What did they do here? Uh-oh. Stop. Maybe it's just on the surface and we can wipe it off.
Actually, we were planning on pretty much finishing the front of the car today.
I asked the driver again when the part will be finished, the fender. He said sometime during the week, Monday at the latest. And I said, no, tomorrow. Can you also put some pressure on again? Mistakes can always happen. It's just bad when they happen when there's time pressure. Then things get difficult.
One of my biggest problems is getting the idea across that a schedule doesn't mean that if we don't keep to it, the project manager will be sentenced to death. It's not like that. Often there are sound reasons or circumstances for missing deadlines. However, I think without defining a time frame and setting goals, we want this to be finished by a certain date, then I find the phrase, "it's finished when it's finished," to be problematic.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, we'll see to it that the parts are painted and mounted. Then we should be finished Wednesday. The saddlery also needs the car. Things are going to get pretty tight. It got a bit hectic toward the end because the vehicle has an important appointment next week, the wind tunnel test. All the bodywork has a massive impact on the aerodynamics, and that's why the crucial test we ultimately had to do was the wind tunnel test.
Is the workshop free up there? Is it free? Can you drive through to the wheel alignment station?
The Ruhr region is 100% Brabus DNA. It's the mentality. If you work hard and deliver results, you're doing a good thing. Because people here don't have these, let's say, prejudices or whatever, or reservations when it comes to tackling challenges, they just get on with it. We've always been a good team and still are, just tackling things as they come. Not saying, wait, let's look and see and discuss things to death, but just move forward.
I think it's actually our company culture that's, of course, shaped by our employees. Most of them are from the Ruhr region, although no longer exclusively. And the Ruhr region has a very open and very direct culture. You see that here too. Good morning, everybody. Right now, I'd like to briefly discuss with you. Sure, we set up a test plan that starts pretty routinely. Who leaves from Bottrop when, and when do they arrive? Our truck is going to leave here at 6 a.m. And then I'd say the rest of the crew at 7:30. Dirk and Mirko in the Sprinter.
The advantage of Papenburg is you get all types of tracks. You get cobblestones, you get concrete slab bumps, you get bad asphalt, good asphalt, sine waves.
We've booked all the test tracks, so above all the oval circuit, the endurance track north and south. Those are the most important. Especially the south one is always pretty good for testing the chassis. I haven't booked any braking tracks. And what we'll also do is, just so you're not surprised, 1 or 2 rounds on the outside of the grounds. And in the end, you just go and drive because there'll be enough lists and they easily fill up. We're just going to drive on those track profiles offering the widest variety of information. Right now, we're in Papenburg, a very large track in Emsland that is used a lot by the automobile industry. The main reason we were in Papenburg was to align the chassis. We were there with our partner KEW that supplies us with shock absorbers and all the necessary electronics. So it was all about chassis alignment. Lance, keep it at about 130 kilometers per hour.
Then the car is driven with the corresponding testing equipment. Afterwards, we collect the data, including the sensations of the driver, the front seat passenger, and those sitting in the back. Their sensations are then thoroughly discussed. What can be improved? What must be improved?
I want to know why it's already bothering me with these low amplitudes.
Like something shouting from the back.
Exactly.
As if it holds you back for a minute. That's probably the long wheelbase to a certain degree, but then again, there's this pulling back. That needs to be reduced.
Yesterday, we electronically adjusted the dampers. We tried harder, softer. How hard do you have to be? How soft?
Now we've got some proper movement. You can really feel the loading bed.
Yeah, that's what you meant, in the back.
It's going like that.
And then we noticed that, in all, we can get softer with the dampers. And that's why we're taking them out and readjusting the hardware around the valves.
That means we've tried out different hardware settings, like valve configurations on the dampers, different data sets, program settings, controls, It's also fundamental. So that during the road test, the car that was driving okay at the beginning actually becomes what it needs to be afterwards.
Today we took a good step forward again. The car moves very, very smoothly, even in the back. That's always an issue with the G.
How dynamic it will be is always something that has to be balanced with comfort. It's really super interesting. I could do this all day. You learn something all day long. Vehicle dynamics is one of the most exciting topics ever. And you're also not in Bottrop, which is also kind of nice.
Jan Gander. Jan Gander has been with me here at the company for several years now. What kind of guy is Jan Gander? It's difficult to talk about your own boss, but Jan Gander is just a kind-hearted, impulsive.
I am such a bad passenger. Slow down.
Unbelievable.
He loves the operational side of the business and would just as soon be involved in the tiniest details.
Jörn is someone who wants to achieve something, and he also listens, even when he doesn't want to hear certain things. But he still takes them in, and that's really what defines him. That he doesn't go through life with blinkers on and wants to achieve a lot as a team.
Come on, just a quick drive.
See? He's like the fun-loving little boy who always wants to drive.
Well, after 2 years of work, we're here today to install the wheels for the first time that we've specially designed and built for the SL.
The inspiration came from the original monoblock 2-wheel from the 80s, which was strongly modeled on the Mercedes Star. Those 3 spokes were quite polarizing back then. There were really only 2 positions. You loved it or you hated it. That needs to be said quite clearly.
My first impression is already phenomenal. The wheel looks even more vibrant in real life, and above all, even bigger. In terms of effect, it's even bigger than it was in CAD, or on all the renderings we did.
Nowadays, we usually have forged wheels milled from solid material in these sizes. This results in a few differences because the manufacturing process is different. As a result, certain configurations can't be represented this way or have to be represented differently using other options, such as with the undercut. And so we went through quite a few design cycles to preserve the iconic design but adapt it to modern times. Which means monoblock design, forged wheel, undercut, freestanding spokes, spokes attached far to the outside of the rim, as well as the openings in the middle of the spoke to get as much out of the lightweight structure as possible and to offer details the former wheel, the monoblock 2, didn't have.
Which means it pretty much stayed the same. You have a 3-spoke design, but it's much more open. It looks much lighter and has lots of complex technical details that the wheel couldn't have at the time.
Yeah, nowadays you'd say badass.
I just think it's super cool and looks fantastic on the car. It's just stunning. Also in 21 and 22 inch, it's really, really cool.
That's what defines a company like ours. We make products that not everyone likes, but that have character. That's important. Some people like this and others like that. Thanks to our huge collection, there are also other designs customers can choose from. But on a Bodo Bushman car, it has to be a mono black 2-wheel.
Now here in our parking lot, we're going to see if the steering wheel is well aligned, whether it stays straight or pulls towards one side when you accelerate or hit the brakes, whether you need to correct the steering.
A very important test. That's what you're referring to. is the wind tunnel test.
For that, we went to Toyota Gazoo Racing in Cologne, a really state-of-the-art wind tunnel. There are 2 of them. One is still in permanent use by Formula One.
So for this test, we have to take the vehicle and place it in this tunnel. The tunnel is exactly what the name says, a wind tunnel. That means it principally simulates how a vehicle behaves at different speeds. So we prepare the vehicle with special mounting fixtures for the wheels. The testing engineers on site firmly brace the vehicle in the locking device. The vehicle then stands on a so-called rolling or conveyor belt, which simulates a moving road with measuring equipment underneath. Then the test engineers have to check whether the vehicle is in the correct position. And then you let the vehicle roll forward a short distance. But vehicles nowadays have this stupid little feature. What happens when a vehicle rolls 10 to 15 meters? It locks its doors.
The key is still inside.
Oh no, it's inside? Right, the usual routine, it locks up.
Suddenly, we all looked at each other in disbelief. One of our colleagues said, "We have a problem." What? The key is in the car. And? The car just locked its doors. Oh. But we didn't know whether the parking brake would lock, when the battery would give out, or whatever else. We had to get the door open again. What else could we do? We had to break into the car, pry it open. We took a plastic wedge, pried the car open in old car thief style, then tried to grab the key with the welding wire and press the button. All of that didn't work. And after what felt like a half an hour, we were all soaked in sweat. 4 or 5 of us wrangling around the vehicle. And then we succeeded in activating the window opener. We lowered the window a bit, and then 5 arms dove into the car and grabbed the keys.
You need a key?
We saved the day.
We'd gotten ourselves into quite a predicament. But luckily, it all worked out in the end. Now we can laugh about it, and it makes a good story.
You have downforce on the front axle, you have downforce on the rear axle. This all has to be in a very well-balanced ratio. We use the term aerodynamic balance.
There's a trailing edge, so we have to play around a bit, depending on which trailing edge goes upwards. We have different heights and configurations, and just tested which variant will be best for us.
This is very important for the driving stability of the car because we're going 340 kilometers per hour. It has to be balanced, you have to be safe, and the downforce on the front and rear axles have to fit together precisely. I can say this much, we're definitely better, although this car is much wider than the convertible, but I won't give away any exact numbers. As an engineer, I admit, I don't want to let people look too closely behind the curtain. Not that I want to hide that we've experienced a setback or can't get something right or other problems. It's actually not that at all. However, with our documentary, we're giving people a very deep look into our development processes. And development processes and technology are know-how. And then I tend to have a kind of protective instinct that rises in me where I say, do I really want to show this? And do I have to? Not many people know this, so why do they need to know? In the end, they're lab experiments that create the basis for everything else. What comes afterwards, and is just as important, is the road test.
The Turbo S drifts even on small alpine passes, which doesn't make things easy and challenges the driver. You do need good driving skills. But we didn't want to overdo it because the car was expected 2 weeks later at the signature night.
It probably loosened because of the drift or the vibrations in general, and the frame was moved in a different direction.
That dent is not going to fix itself.
I remember when I first saw the 6x6 in its final form, while we were in Fuerteventura for testing and the video shoot. Because today we have to ask this question: where are the right landscapes to really put the 6x6 to the test and find out what you can do with it? Where are the limits of this vehicle?
My goal is to make sure we don't lose sight of our brand essence. So I'm not going to start making slapstick videos. For me, it's important that our brand comes across authentically. Is the car in the right terrain? Does it belong there? Or does it look out of place? Like driving a 6x6 on a racetrack. We're not doing that.
It seems as if there's no civilization. That's the feeling we want to convey. Unexplored territory.
Especially the landscape with the ocean, the stony desert. Like you said, that was such a cool image. And both the black and the white car there together. I also thought all the action footage with Lance driving through the desert was spectacular.
What used to always be trips to the trade fairs are now, to a certain extent, the events where we test the vehicles and, of course, try to combine with shooting the videos.
So really, a work trip like Fuerteventura, or think of last year at Ras Al Khaimah, in the desert with the crawler.
Ras Al Khaimah or Dubai with the 1300R.
Exactly. You've got marketing and sales, but also engineering there, because we accompany the cars to the events to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Yeah, and a crew like that and everything else you need. Sometimes it's 30, 40 people that make up the team. You need a driver who drives the car. You need a camera vehicle. Maybe camera crane that needs to be operated. All the equipment involved. Drones, drone pilots, so lots of stuff. You need catering for a team like that. Everything needs to be organized. Of course, we sometimes hire external help, but the main crew comes from us. Already travel-wise, it's a huge effort. Usually we go to more southern regions with our cars, but now we're in Austria. A bit different for once because, well, we have a very special car with us. The Brabus 900 Rocket R, based on the Porsche 911 Turbo S. And seriously, one of the sexiest cars we've ever built. And we said, okay, where would you want to drive a car like that? And we started thinking, Alpine passes. Of course, you could also drive through beautiful sunshiny Italy, but you really want to drive into some curves with this kind of car and have some fun. So that's why we came to the gorgeous Countertal and more or less rented a mountain there. We actually had route sections cordoned off because the Rocket R was still only a prototype, not launched yet. So of course we didn't want the car to be photographed.
This is a 35-kilometer stretch, but we don't want to drive all of it. We chose specific sections and cordoned those off and filmed there.
The nice thing was, we arrived at a location during scouting, and I'll never forget it. All of a sudden, someone drove past in a Porsche 911. And you knew immediately they're not there coincidentally. They want to do exactly what we have in mind, something that fits this type of product. Now our car is of course on a level 100 times higher than the normal Porsche. We're talking 900 horsepower and an electronically limited top speed of 340 kilometers per hour.
What continues to really excite and motivate me personally is that when you followed something from its development to the end, and you've often worn yourself out in the process. Everybody else sees the finished project, but the path that leads you there is often not so easy and straightforward, filled with problems and challenges, and then it's finished. And you stand in front of it, or you see the first photos that the folks in marketing have made. And then you often think, and that's what still motivates me, even when we're already working on new projects with all their challenges, it continues to motivate me. It's all about the feeling, wow, that is one fantastic car. This is really an outstanding product. And you also think, yeah, exactly, wouldn't change a thing.
Of course, you've seen the prototype while the car is being built. You've seen it drive past on the test track. Of course, I received tons of photos from you while you were building it, plenty of updates. And still, that moment when you stand between the white and the black car, and they're finally finished. There they are, huge off-road monsters. And naturally, I don't only see the finished car, but also the team's effort and performance that's necessary until there's a finished product like that. And for me, that was Fuerteventura. When I arrived after a 45-minute ride through the stony desert, it was surrounding us. And I just stood there. And I thought, this is really impressive. That's really, wow, guys. I have to be very careful with the gas pedal because it's unbelievably, the turbos catch very quickly and you can also hear it. How we're discharging air periodically and the car reacts in a very refined way. I mean, seriously, we're driving a 6-wheeled car with 3 axles and how much weight?
Empty 3.4 tons, permissible total weight 4.5.
Now, if you told me I was driving a sports car, I'd say, yeah, that checks out.
In this car, you don't have the feeling that you're way over 3 tons and have a 3rd axle. Instead, you think you're driving a G63. This car is so agile, and it's only when I look in the mirror that I notice there's an extra axle. And I find that fascinating. And that's the art of keeping the car agile enough to be comfortable for the driver.
I'm standing there in Fuerteventura in the dust and wondering how my father would have reacted to the 6x6. And I think he would have simply said, guys, give me the keys. I'm going to be out for 2 days. But there's another car, his absolute favorite that he drove for many, many years. Always in the same color, in black, the SL.
Do you think your father, if we had put the SL, the Bodo Buschbahn edition Brabus 750 based on the SL63, what would have happened if we had handed him the keys and said, here, we have something for you?
That's simply...
Starting with the quilting, there's a funny story when you talk about quilting designs. Today, they all have wonderful names like Seashell Diamond, Rocket Design, and all sorts of things. In the past, sorry to say, we simply called it by the brand name, Ritter Sport, like the chocolate. We didn't mean to, but it best described the square pattern. You had these 2x2 centimeter squares, and they were exactly like the design of the chocolate bar. That's how everyone knew it back then. What type of interior should we go for? Back then you said, yeah, go for the Ritter Sport design. Black leather with this and that quilting. And now we interpret it a little differently. Today it has a partial perforation, so of course it's all been modernized. But it's still pretty much the same as the original Bodo Buschmann car.
We build an incredible number of cars. We're busy all the time. And there are normal projects, and then there are some very special ones. There are photos you never forget after seeing them for the first time. And one of these shows my father on the A31 in a leather jacket driving the SL without the hood, sunglasses on, hair flying. Everything that defines Brabus is in that photo. And to this day, it is one of my absolute all-time favorites. When I came to the shoot and found out that the guys had just removed the hood from the new SL in order to recreate the photo, I honestly needed a moment. We simply asked ourselves the question, how can we honor our founder, my father? And how can we say thank you for building the 40-year foundation we work on today? And how can I acknowledge 5 years of next-generation Brabus, as well as 5 years as CEO at Brabus? How can we convey all that without me having to talk about it? And still, when the time comes and you sit there and realize 5 years have come and gone, and this product is in front of you, and you're about to present it to the public, I naturally paused for a moment, even sitting in the audience at the signature night, and said, okay, how? How did all this happen? What happened?
That's a longer story. I was at the Technoclassica, a trade fair for classic automobiles for those who might not know. And Bodo Bushman called me in the morning and said, Sven, can you come outside for a minute? I can't park my car. I thought, wait a moment. Yeah, I'm not feeling well. I have a headache. Fine, I'll come out. No problem. I parked the car. He looked really bad. I sent him away. Oli Goffrey was there too. I said, Bodo, go home. You don't look good. Go to the doctor. And a few days later, we got the call from Stefan Hoster saying that Bodo Bushman wasn't doing well. But I'd rather skip the details for now. And then sitting together in the office with Oli Goffrey and Konstantin, all four of us just looked at each other. Jörn joined us a bit later.
I wasn't in the office that day. I had the day off and was at the Nürburgring and received the call in the morning from Oli Goffrey that Bodo had passed. I have to say, it wasn't easy. It was a huge shock for the whole company. And of course a shock for the family, no question. Because we knew, well, I knew a few more details than most of the others. We knew what had happened because, more or less from one day to the next, he didn't show up for work. And he was always there.
We all thought, that's not good. First, I was sorry for Konstantin. He was his father. And second, when there's someone that close, I didn't start working here yesterday. You have a very, very close relationship to people. And in this case, we saw each other every day. Well, not literally. Weekends were off from time to time. You needed a moment to absorb it all.
It was a deep shock for all the employees. I remember on the same day, quite a few called me, and I had grown men crying on the phone. So it wasn't easy. Really not easy. What was great was that the family, Konstantin, his sisters, his mother, stood up and said loud and clear in front of the employees, listen, everything's fine. It's a difficult situation, but we're going to continue here in Bodo's style.
If I could have a conversation with him now, what would it be like? Because now it would be two people meeting significantly closer to eye level than they were at that time when he was still alive. Well, I won't be getting that opportunity. And still, I sometimes think, maybe he's sitting up there on a cloud, laughing his head off, saying, see, I told you, things can get pretty complicated. But that we'll never know.
Exactly. That car stands for much more than just, we built a car the way Bodo Bushman would have wanted it. Instead, as you said, the last 5 years of the company's development is in that car.
Absolutely.